Welcome to Sexy Sunday, where we analyze sex scenes from films and TV shows, discuss what they tell us about the story, the characters, and more importantly, whether they're hot or not. I'm Jessica.
I'm Anishka.
And this is Sexy Sunday.
Today we're going to be talking about Entourage, a show created by Doug Ellin that aired on HBO from 2004 to 2011, and I've counted about 25 sex scenes. I wouldn't take this number too seriously though, because I kind of struggle to count them a little bit. There's 8 seasons of the show, and because I'm the most organized person ever, I've decided to start counting the sex scenes about 3 days ago. So that meant I was literally just fast forwarding every single episode, just waiting. So I probably missed a couple, but it is actually I thought it was quite difficult telling what is and what isn't a sex scene in this show, because some of them are very graphic, but most of the time they're more like it's hinted, like you know that they're having sex or they're going to have sex or they've had sex, but you don't really see it that much. So I was like, well, that doesn't really count as a sex scene, even though the episode can sometimes feel very sex fueled. And obviously the boys talk about sex all the time and they're very crude about it. So you feel very much like Entourage is definitely a show that I'm always thinking I don't want to watch it with my parents. But then when you actually think of the sex scenes themselves are not actually that bad or pretty rare.
Yeah, I mean, we should preface this by saying I actually haven't watched the show, and obviously Anushka has watched the show, and all I have seen are the scenes that Anushka has sent to me, so all the sex scenes, but also the build-up, and then some other scenes peppered in for context, which I very much appreciate, because I feel like I actually know the characters quite well, even though I've only seen them through these very short clips.
So out of all the videos, just in general, that I've sent you, what is your first impression of the show?
So obviously the men talk about the women in very derogatory ways. It's definitely the early 2000s, which I've started to love revisiting the early 2000s, because it's this fever dream of really sexed up women who enjoy being objectified, because it's all through the male gaze. So it's kind of fun to rewatch it and just be like, the context of the time. But in terms of the characters, Vince is so hot. I know him from
Devil Wears Prada.
Yes, which I fell in love with him in that movie, even though maybe there's a bit also such a different character. I feel like in Devil Wears Prada he's a much softer person, whereas here he has the hottest sex scenes, hands down. Most of his sex scenes, the girls are naked. And that's really hot.
He's the movie star. He has to.
That's what I was gonna say. Okay. He definitely strikes me as the movie star. So that doesn't surprise me.
I absolutely love this show. It's quite funny, and I'm quite glad that we're getting into it so quickly in the podcast as well, because everyone that I'm talking to about this show, most people in France seem to have seen it for some reason. So I don't know if it was bigger in France than it was here, but most people here either don't know it or absolutely hate it. It's like, why would I want to see 4 really rich guys living their really rich life or whatever? It's because it's TV, which is escapism. Literally, that's the whole reason. And obviously, it's totally fine if it's not people's thing. But to me, it makes no sense that you wouldn't want to watch a show because it offers you a look at a life that you probably will never live. It's literally why I want to watch TV shows, is to watch something that's a dream that is completely unattainable for me. I wish it weren't. I personally think, actually, I was reading an article this morning with Lucy Preble, who's a screenwriter. She works with Billie Piper a lot, and she's also one of the screenwriters on Succession. And I think she seems like a brilliant person who I would respect the opinion of. And she mentioned something about, is it misogynistic or is it a critic of misogyny? And I can't remember what she was talking about, but I think she was talking about a TV show. I think she was talking about a film. Saturday Night Fever, I think she was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought this is exactly what you can say about Entourage. It's like, yeah, 100%. The atmosphere is very like male heavy. I mean, it is about 4 dudes. Of course, it's masculine. And there are still like really good female characters, but they're just not the main characters. It'd be like watching Sex and the City and being like, oh, the guys aren't big enough. Like, it's like, well, it's not about guys. It's about 4 girls. Like, it's the same thing. You can't really hold it against the show. And yeah, the way they talk about girls, etc. But also, I think it's a show about Hollywood in the 2000s. So how could it be, even if the writers were like, oh, Hollywood is such a sexist place, they would still have to write it like this, because otherwise it just wouldn't be the realistic show that they've made.
Yeah, and it's like, it shows the like Vince being like a massive womanizer. It makes sense for him as an actor who women want to have sex with, and then he has all this power behind him, and it's like, of course, like it would feel out of character, or it would feel out of sync to kind of show him in a different way. And I think that's the thing, you can look at these shows and movies in the context of where they're written and in the characters that they're written, and that's okay, because you're kind of showing the realness with like a obvious TV mirror over it, so it's like a little bit more pretty, but it's showing you kind of a window into that world, and to show it any other way would be a disservice. You can be critical and still enjoy it. Like, those two things don't have to be mutually exclusive.
Yeah, exactly. So let's start with E. What is your impression of him after watching those scenes?
Well, I love that he's like the emotional guy that can't have unemotional sex. Because I and that they josh around with him about it. And he's really trying to like fit in, but by like trying to have casual encounters. I do also that scene where Terrence's wife or ex
Melinda,
like has sex with him. I saw that from like the first scene. I was like, they're definitely, well, obviously you're sending me sex scenes, so that could
that was a pretty good hint that they were going to end up potentially having sex. You never know. No,
that was definitely my amazing detective skills. Definitely nothing to do.
I like this situation because so E and Sloane obviously used to date, and they're not together at this point. And Melinda was like her stepmom, and I do actually like that they got together because they just shouldn't, which makes it more fun.
Yes, there is that definite like forbidden element to it that makes it a bit more hot.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of what we see in the threesome thing when he is dating Sloane and he has a threesome with her and her friend.
But it's so funny how it feels like it's this regular occurrence. But I feel like a threesome would be something that would be much more fun in theory than it is in practice. I feel like the fantasy of it is, because also if you're with a partner and you've got these rules that you've put in place, which I think is very, very good. And the fact that the guys were taking the piss out of E for it, I was like, you need rules.
But also it really made me laugh when Vince was like, oh, let me guess what the rule is. You can't sleep with the other girl. And he's like, how do you know? And it's like, well, what other rules was it going to be? Like, you can't touch her toes. Like, obviously it was going to be you can't sleep with her. Why would she give a shit about anything else?
You cannot touch her nipple. Just her left nipple. You can touch the right nipple.
Exactly. It's like, well, it doesn't really take a fucking genius to understand what the rule is going to be.
That is very true. But I do like that Vince has this whole concept of being like, well, she's a good girl, because if she wasn't a good girl, then she'd let you sleep with her. So the fact that she's not letting you sleep with her means that she's a good girl. And I'm like, wow.
I think he also thinks that Sloane is a good girl because she's never had a threesome before, and she's not really the kind of girl who would do that, which is also bullshit. Like, it doesn't make you a good or a bad girl or anything, really, to have threesomes or not have threesomes. But again, their vision of things, I don't particularly get. on board with a lot of the time. That's not really an issue for me. I still can enjoy the show even though I don't agree with what they say. But yeah. I mean, we're not on Vince yet, but in that example of the threesome, I like how the other guys, even though they might have experienced it or whatever, they're very much like excitable children, whereas Vince is definitely the one who's had the most threesomes, and he's very much, he's kind of like, in a weird way, he's kind of like this sage guru. Like, he's kind of calm and collected, and he knows what the rules are, and he's like, I've had this experience with these girls during this threesomes and that experience, and I've had threesomes where I had to protect one girl more, and I've had experience, and I just love how he's like, he's less fussed about the whole thing. But I also really, really love how ultimately they're all kids. And when he's like about to go to the threesome, like Vince is like, take a photo of us, and Turtle takes a photo of them too. It's like he's going to prom, like it's like baby's first threesome, and everyone, like all four of them are so invested. And that's why I love about the show. It's like it's just like a friend show over everything else.
And I also like when he wakes up spooning the other girl, I was like, oh, oh. That's not
what you want. Did you recognize that the other girl is the same actress who has a threesome with Orlando Bloom in that Easy show that I've sent, like that I told you to watch, but you didn't watch? You didn't like that episode?
I couldn't watch it. And I couldn't get past how much Orlando Bloom looked like my dad, and just how much of a crush I had on Orlando Bloom as a kid, and it just made me feel weird, and so I stopped before I got to the sex scenes.
Oh, that's very fair enough. It's a shame you're missing out, but also totally fair. But yeah, the actress is the same one, so I don't know why everyone's giving her lots of threesomes to do, but I'm quite enjoying it. What about the anal sex scene with Ian Sloane? Did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed that one very much. I liked when he goes, "You're strangling it."
I really, really like this scene because obviously it's funny, but I think it's also nice to see that kind of intimacy because the boys are so codependent, especially E and Vince, but all of them really are incredibly codependent. And it's quite rare seeing them. Obviously, we see them with girls all the time, but it's very rare to see them have a moment where it's like they have actual intimacy and closeness with someone that's not just one of the other four of them, like one of them.
Yeah.
And I think it was a really nice scene to see that he actually does have a life with Sloane that's kind of independent of the gang kind of thing.
Yeah. And it was just like a very like kind of real look at it as well.
Yeah.
Of just like they don't just go straight in for it.
All right, should we go into Turtle and Drama? I've put them together because they often are. What are your first impressions on these characters?
I love them as a duo. I have a massive soft spot for Turtle.
So yeah, I think Turtle and Drama, they're just like they're both very vulnerable and loving characters, but their sex scenes are just the worst. Like there are no worse sex scenes than Turtle and Drama's.
That one is the one where Turtle is doing the dirty talk on the phone to that girl, and his mum listens in. I was like, oh, that is literally my biggest fear. Or like, I know it's on the phone, but it's like if you're sexting, I'm always like double checking because I'm like, what if I send this to my mum, or like suddenly she's like randomly pops up and I hit send to her or something.
Did you recognize the girl that he's talking to on the phone or not at all? Have you ever watched The Sopranos?
No.
Oh. She plays herself, and she's like an actress who's in The Sopranos. The threesome that Turtle and Drama have. So what do you think was the situation there?
That they both met this really hot girl in a bar. She'd come on to both of them, and they were like, well, whoever she goes after, that's who has sex with her. And then she ends up going after both of them.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what happened.
Whoop, whoop! I'll take my gold star now.
Yeah, the only, they didn't meet her in a bar, but you would have never been able to know this, but they're actually at Sundance, the festival, and she's taking them around. So that's how they meet her, and they're literally fighting the entire episode, trying to like up one another, and trying to be the most clever one, the most whatever, making her laugh or whatever. And you really can't tell which way it's going. Also, it's like, Vince is right there. Why aren't you trying to have sex with him instead? But whatever. That just makes no sense to me. But you do you. And she obviously ends up being like, hey, let's all go upstairs into your bunk beds, which is just a dream. Why would you have a threesome with your best friend though?
Yeah, like I wouldn't want, I feel there's something so different to seeing someone naked and then naked in like a sexual way.
I get that Turtle and Drama have this air of desperation about them, and they're very much like, if the girl wants it, they're not going to say no. But that's just like, I mean, I love how they're following her, but you can tell that they're not like, they're looking at each other being like, oh my God, they clearly don't want to do it.
Yes.
But they also do want to do it. It's like, it's kind of like, well, if this is the only way we can have her, I guess we'll do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which obviously they regret because they do have an incident.
Yes. Of
course, having sex.
Crossing.
So.
What's it called? Like crossing swords.
Which of course if there's any two people that's gonna happen to, it's definitely Turtle and Drama. Turtle and Drama are definitely the characters, and E, to be honest, they all have really good evolutions, but Turtle and Drama come from a place like E was already kind of in a good place at the start of the show, whereas Turtle and Drama were very much like Vince's boys. Like they didn't really have much of a life of their own. I think they've had really, really good evolutions, and actually I would say that all the characters evolve in a really good way, and Vince is kind of the one that's declining, I'd say.
I'd say it's like the scenes that I saw, Vince was the one that kind of stayed the same the whole way.
So should we move on to Vince? Are we ready for Vince?
Oh, always.
So why are your first impressions apart from that?
All his sex scenes are hot, like pretty much all of them.
Is there anything that you've noticed about his sex scenes? That's something that I always pick up on.
Are always facing away from him.
Yes, that's why so I feel like obviously Vince has sex in loads of different positions, in loads of different, settings. But most of the time when we see him having sex on the bed, he's doing like reverse cowgirl. So the girl is like sat on him, like facing away. I hope that was like voluntary. Obviously someone was in charge of picking the position that they were doing it in, so I'm sure it was voluntary. But usually he's having sex with random girls that he's only having sex with once, and then we never see them again. So I think it's really interesting that they're always in that position where there's no connection. He obviously has a great view. Like he's literally just staring at her ass. It's very low effort for him. It's like the perfect position for someone who doesn't want to put much work into anything ever, which is literally Vince. Like he's very much like everything comes easy for him. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't have to work very hard, and things just happen because he's handsome and he's charming, and he's like got that whole vibe about him. And I think it's really, when I think of sex scenes that tell us things about the characters, I think this is one of the best example. Like it tells us so much about Vince that this is his go-to sex position.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because it does seem like everything falls into his lap. Like even in those scenes where he's like, oh, I'm unemployed, I don't really care. It's just like, it seems like he kind of coasts through everything because he's like, well, I'll land on my feet and like nothing can ever harm me.
Exactly. And I think there's, I don't know, people are always talking about how Vince has literally zero personality. I don't think that's true at all. I actually find him quite interesting. Like I guess he's the kind of people that everyone kind of hates, like out of jealousy, which I don't really get, because to me, it's like, it makes him more fun to watch. Like if he was living exactly the same kind of average life as I'm living, like I wouldn't be that interested. I think it's more interesting to watch someone and want to live vicariously through them when they're characters, or really hate them or whatever for really good reasons, than like hating someone just because they've got a nice life on TV. Just makes no sense to me. But I think his attitude to girls, he's like the perfect sort of non-dickish dickhead. I don't think Vince ever treats any girl like shit. I think he's very much like, he cares about everyone. There's actually an episode, I don't think I've sent that to you, but there's an episode where he talks about how he's never broken up with anyone because he just loves all the girls too much. And it's like, I think he genuinely means it. Like, I think he genuinely loves all the girls. And I think I've sent you one bit where there's this girl who comes in, is like in a bar, and she's like, "Oh, do you remember me?" And he's like, "Yeah, I bought you a drink." And he remembers what drink he bought her, what age she was turning. He's just got this thing about him where it's like, no, I do think he cares. It doesn't care enough to like commit to one of them, because he cares about all of them. And yeah, in a lot of sense that might make him a bit of a dick, but why? Because he's not promising anything to anyone. I think he's not going around being like, "Oh, you're special, I'm dating you," and then going and doing the same thing to someone else. I think they all know what the situation is, and he's literally just a hot famous actor who has fun and enjoys himself. Like, life is short, why wouldn't he? Do you know what I mean? I think it's quite fun when Sloane is like, "Oh, my friend Amy left this for you," and it's a photo of her friend naked that he slept with, and she's like, "I swear he gets it out of them. Like, my friends aren't like that. Like, Vince gets it out of them." And I think it's because of that. Like, I think girls weirdly trust him because they can tell he's not like a creepy dickhead. Do you know what I mean?
The way you said, because like obviously being the womanizer that he is, he could so easily be that kind of manipulative asshole, but in reality he just wants to like, he just likes to have a lot of sex, and it's like there's no pretense that it's going to be anything more. Like, it's always this kind of fun thing, and it's always, all of his scenes are fun.
And also, I love how he really doesn't have to pursue girls. Like, Turtle and Drama are constantly trying to have sex with everyone, and Vince literally is doing nothing. And this girl is like, "Come into the changing room, I'm naked and I want to have sex with you right now." Like, it's just so great. It just comes to him so easily. But I think that's why he's never creepy. I think he's just like enjoying his life, but he's not hurting anyone. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, they do say quite derogatory comments about women, which you
absolutely, yes.
Which you could say is in some way harmful. But I think in terms of his actual interactions with those women, it's like there's no pretense about it, that like he doesn't fall into that manipulative fuckboy kind of
and phase. I would argue, and I feel like that's maybe a bit bigger debate, but I would argue that if someone says derogatory things about you behind your back and you never find out about it, it's not really gonna hurt you. It's not nice. Like, obviously I wouldn't want, like, I'm sure people have said things about me behind my back, because, you know, I'm sure everyone has said things about everyone behind their back, and it sucks, but I don't think it's hurtful. I think it's like, I mean, me and my friends, like when we're all single, if a friend of mine was sleeping with someone, we would definitely talk about them, and it wouldn't always be nice at all. And I think that's allowed. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's a boy thing about girls. I think everyone does it, especially when you're young and you don't really care and it's someone you're never going to see again.
Yeah, definitely. Like, for sure, it doesn't like harm them directly. But I mean, in like terms of the context of the show, I guess as a watcher, it's like seeing their perceptions, because you can be quite impressionable.
And I would say Vince doesn't really, he laughs at the crass jokes that Turtle and Drama make. He's like, he participates in the conversation. He's definitely not like innocent, but he rarely says shit about girls himself. Like, it's quite, he doesn't really talk about girls the same way as Drama does, for example. I mean, in no way am I saying Vince is a feminist. Like, I'm definitely not. Like, he's definitely not jumping in to defend the girls, and he's definitely saying stuff that is very questionable. But I don't think he's got that same sort of crude comments about whatever girl he's banged kind of thing that the others can have sometimes. The only time Vince is actively pursuing a girl is in season 8 in the last episodes, and that's the girl he ends up marrying. And I like to pretend these episodes don't exist, so I don't have to deal with them. Vince, as much as he's like an interesting character for all the things I've already said, I don't think he's got that much depth to him. I genuinely think he's just like a guy who's enjoying his life, and all he wants is to have his 3 best mates with him, help him with his career, have all this. But he often says, like, because they come from very like working class families and stuff, they don't come, the 4 of them grew up together in Queens. They definitely don't come from money or anything like that. And he often says, like, this is all amazing, but as much as I love it, I could go back to having nothing. Like, it's not he's kind of very much like, I'm enjoying life at the moment because I don't know what's going to happen next, but whatever it is, I've got my bros and I'll be fine, kind of thing. And I think that's kind of enough. Like, we don't need more from Vince than being that guy. And all the other characters are also interesting enough to like carry the show, with Vince just being the guy who's going through life being like, whatever it is, it'll work itself out and it's fine. But I think they tried to give him a little bit more depth, and I think that actually made him a bit less interesting, because I'm not gonna lie, seeing him like on drugs was just boring to me anyway. I just didn't enjoy it at all. And season 7 and 8, everyone is growing up and everyone's kind of starting to have their independent life. And I think it makes sense, absolutely, because there's a point where all the 30-year-olds can't just all live together, the 4 of them in a big house, and not have any serious relationships or commitments to anything else. But it's just kind of sad, because it's like, no, the show is at its best when the 4 of them are like constantly together, kind of thing. But I see why they had to do it, but you kind of just realize that Vince is, if they don't need Vince anymore, which at the start they all do, they're all living off him. He's the one who buys like their cars, their clothes, their everything, because, you know, they're all working for him.
Star.
Exactly. At the end, they all have their own thing going on. They don't need Vince anymore. And you kind of realize that if Vince doesn't have his friends, like, he's kind of got very little. But in season 5, I think, like they've got this really, like, this film that's not doing well at all that comes out, and that kind of almost kills his career, and you see him struggle for an entire season. And that was a very interesting change, and I do like that. I just think the last 2 seasons, it feels like a bit of a different show. That's all. Should we move on to the women of the show?
Go on then.
Looking at those videos, what was your first impressions of the girls in the show?
They fit into the very stereotypical, they're either the sex object or they're the crazy badass woman who is also quite sexual, or they are the nagging wife. Like, all the women are in very stereotypical roles, especially for an early 2000s.
Do you think? Oh, that's interesting.
Even Dana, like, she still, like, from that short scene that I saw, she still strikes me as like the powerhouse that has got to where she's got because she's hard and she acts like a man, and therefore that's how she gets to where she is. So even like your quote unquote strong women still are through like a very male container.
That's so interesting. I actually wrote something about this because I think, so you've got Dana Gordon, who's like got a big shot in Hollywood and stuff, and she's a girl. And then Amanda, who's the agent that Vince has seen for a little while, which, by the way, we didn't talk about this, but I did think it was super hot.
Why don't you see them have sex?
Yeah,
why? I was totally expecting another scene.
You do. Okay, so you do, but it's very brief. And I was like, I don't actually feel like it's even worth putting in.
Okay.
Also, one thing we didn't actually touch upon with the sex scenes, they always have Vince say really dumb stuff during the sex scenes, or the girls say really dumb stuff. Like, there's always a couple of, why?
When they're having sex in the car and he's like, this is the first, like, whatever, and then what does she say? She says something so stupid.
I'm so glad to be your first ride.
Yeah, I was like,
it's just like, this is so cringe. No one speaks like this in real life.
Yeah, and, like, literally, you wouldn't. Who says that in real life? Who has
exactly? I think it's just because Entourage is a comedy, and ultimately they're not, okay, there's sex scenes, but they still have to have like comedic elements to it, even though it's not particularly funny what they say. But it's like, you know, I mean, it can't just be like, we can't just justify showing 2 people boning for 30 seconds with no dialogue, kind of thing. Which, I mean, they can and they should have done, but, you know. Anyway, going back to the girls, I did make a note of this. So Amanda is obviously also a big agent, like a big deal. Then there's also Lizzie, who's, you've not had any videos of her. She's an agent at Ari's company in the later seasons. And Shona, who you've also not seen, and she's doing all the PR for Vince. And they're all what people stereotypically would say is a manly, like, they all have manly qualities, kind of thing. They don't take shit from anyone, and they're very career oriented. They're like, They have everything that people think is men's qualities. Personally, I think, and I might be wrong, but I think they're not men's qualities. I think they're just business qualities. And because business for so long was just for men, like women for so long couldn't have dreamed of having a job that high up, people assimilate this to men. I don't think it's got anything to do with gender. I think it's got to do with that's the kind of attitude you have to have if you want to make it to the top, because if you're not like that, you might just not.
Well, I think it's perpetuated by men because they tend to be in the high up positions where you have to push down your emotions, where you have to be hardlined, you have to step over each other to kind of get to the top. They're like the more toxic kind of male, in quotations, qualities.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. I don't think it is male qualities. I think it's like top of the line business qualities. And I think it's just, as you say, like it's often men that are having those jobs for reasons that are ridiculous. And there's like, you know, everyone can do it, men or women. But I think the people who can do it, regardless of gender, have to have those toxic qualities in a lot of the cases, or at least for now they've had to. I don't know if things will change.
Yeah,
but
because if you want to get to the top, especially of those sorts of cutthroat kind of industries, you kind of have to act that way, because if you act softer, even though that is a great quality to have in a person, you will be trampled on because people will be more like underhand in their way to get to the top. So I do see what you mean, that it's like it's not necessarily a male quality.
Yeah, I'm not trying to defend like the idea of, oh, you should be like this is a great way to live your life. I'm just saying I don't actually think it's women pretending to be men. I think it's just women who have that kind of personality can make it to the top, like men who have that kind of personality can make it to the top. And I actually think that Entourage, for all the people saying it's a sexist show, etc., like obviously I'm not saying it's a feminist show at all, but they do have quite a lot of girls like in high positions. Like there's another one, it's called Barbara, I can't remember her last name. She's also at the top with Ari. Like I feel like they did a good job at, like, yeah, there's a lot of girls who come in, have sex with Vince or Turtle or Drama or whatever. They're really hot, they're models, and we never see them again. We don't even know their names. Now, why would we? That's not what their role is. Their role is to show that all the girls want Vince and that all those guys have an easy whatever when it comes to girls. But there's also some of the girls that we see often, they're actually in really good, powerful positions. I thought it was actually really good writing. And again, I don't know whether I'm giving the writers too much credit or not, but I don't think so. Like I think it was voluntary. But there's a scene, you might have seen it, I can't remember whether I've shown it to you. Amanda is, so the agent, she's arranging flowers while she's on the phone making business. It's on the Yom Kippur day. And she's like making business on the phone, and she's literally smashing it. Like she's actually like very much got the upper hand in this entire episode, but she's like arranging flowers while being on the phone. And I like the fact that they weren't like, we need to show her doing like men's things. It's like, no, that she's actually doing like something that's perceived as very feminine, but she's still fucking great at her job, better than the two men who are doing the same job as her. Because at the end of the episode, you realize that she won and they lost the deal or whatever. I thought that was actually really good. I thought that was them trying to go against the stereotypical, like, she has to act like a man, so we have to show her shooting a gun, whatever men do. I don't know. I don't know, but I thought it was cool.
Or going business, which I also really like when you just saw her Ari typing out "fuck you." That made me laugh.
Ari is my favorite character. He is horrible. He says horrible things, but I think that's why he's good as a character. Like I think you end up really rooting for him, even though you disagree with everything he says. And I think even though you're like, oh, he's horrible, when he's sad, you're sad. Like you want him to win in the end. And I think that's like really good writing. I think that's what makes a character really interesting. He says the worst fatphobic, homophobic, sexist, racist things, but I think it's about him having control, which again doesn't make it any better. But I don't think he actually means any of those things. I think it's just like, I need to show that I'm above them and then show them that I'm the top dog here kind of thing, which, you know, again, still isn't okay.
No, I do see like the layers to him.
Yeah, Ari's a horrible person. I would hate for him to be my boss 100%. But he's a great character to watch. Like, it's very fun to watch.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Like, you can have a character who's very flawed and makes terrible choices, but if they're written in a way that makes them entertaining, you don't mind watching them, because it's like, we're not, as humans, we're not all these like very perfect people who make the best choices at every single term. So it's not always fun to watch someone who's like succeeding all the time, because it doesn't feel very realistic. Whereas if you have someone who's very flawed, it makes it more entertaining.
Exactly. And I feel like we need to do a special mention for Lloyd, who is Ari's assistant. You saw him in one very quick short clip. He's got a great evolution as well, and he is genuinely one of the best characters of the show. So on a scale from 1 to 10, how hot is this show?
Definitely hotter than Sex Education. I'd say it's like a 7.
I'd say it's it's tricky. I'd say it's a 7 or an 8. Like, I think, again, it's just the fact that so many sex scenes aren't actually that sexy, but there's so much sex in it all the time that it makes me feel like it's a very, very sexy show.
Yeah.
I might give it an 8. All the sex scenes I've sent you, which one is your favorite?
Oh, there was one with Vince that was really hot. I think the ones with Vince are all my favorite.
All the ones with Vince, yeah. Yeah, probably same for me. I do I don't know, I like when he's having sex with the girl who's got her camera out and is filming her.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, I like the courtroom girl who's the waitress when he's won, like someone has won the auction, to spend like an evening with him, and they're calling his name and he's banging the girl. All the ones with Vince win. I agree. What was your least favorite?
Oh, the mascot outfit for sure.
Yeah, mine is either that, which was terrible, or the one where the older woman goes down on Drama's ass.
Oh, I'd block that out.
I think I try and block that out. I've been trying to block that out for like 11 years.
Oh yeah, wish block that out.
Yeah. Out of what you've seen so far, what storyline would you like to see more of? Like, if you were to watch the show, which storyline would it be that drags you in?
I think Ian and Sloane kind of drags me in a little bit, but also Turtle's like evolution. I think I would watch it for Turtle.
I think you would really like Turtle a lot. Yeah, I think you'd be a big Turtle fan. Cool, interesting. Did it make you feel any different about the show than from your idea of it before, when I just talked to you about it, but you'd never seen anything of it?
It was really interesting to put then the kind of what you've talked about to like a face on things. And it does make me, like, even talking about it makes me feel a bit differently. So I think I have a different appreciation for it, for sure.
Yeah. Cool. All right. What are we going to talk about next week?
We're going to talk about Sexify, which we are looking forward to more Polish Timmy.
Oh yeah, Polish Timmy is definitely the best part of this show.
100%. And the Easter episode. We can't forget the Easter episode.
Yes, actually, the Easter episode is the best part of this show. But there's a lot of best parts of this show.
Yes. So tune into it next time.
See you next time.